Here's another wonderful histogram question. Let's check out what it says. Dan grows and sells potatoes. The histogram shows the distribution of the masses of his potatoes this year. The potatoes are classed as small, medium and large. Medium potatoes have a mass between 188 grams and 260 grams. Estimate the number of Dan's potatoes that are classed as medium. Firstly, we need to figure out how many potatoes Dan has actually produced. So remember, in order to work out the number within each bar, we need to reverse engineer. So therefore, we need to take the range, in this case 120 to 160, times it by 0.5, therefore 40 times 0.5, this bar represents 20 people. Let's do the same with this one, 160 to 200, 40 times 1.25, 40 times 1.25 would be 50. This represents 50 people. Thirdly, let's do this bar, 20 to 220, 200 to 220, that represents 20. 20 times, this is a bit of a tricky one, but 1.7. 20 times 1.7, and that will give us 34 people represented by this column here. Fourthly, in here we can see between 220 and 260, that's 40. 40 times 0.8, 40 times 0.8, 32 people are represented by this column, and therefore between this one, 260 to 320, I don't know why I've been keeping on saying people, it's potatoes, but 260 to 320, that is 60 times by, in this case, 0.2, so there's 12 potatoes, not people, represented by this column here. Now, what do we do next? We calculate the total number of potatoes, 20, 50, 34, 32, 12, we've got 148 potatoes in total. 148 potatoes in total. So we need to estimate the number of Dan's potatoes that are classed as medium, i.e. between 188 and 260 grams. So let's find 188 firstly. It looks like these, there's 5 squares for every 20, so they're going up in 4s. So 180, 184, 188. Let's draw a dotted line there so visually we can see where 188 grams is. And of course we've got a line here for the 260 already. So we need to know essentially how many potatoes are between these two lines. Easily we can work out this bit. This represents 32 potatoes, as we worked out earlier. This represents 34 potatoes. However, how many potatoes does this represent? This is the tricky bit. Well, what I suggest you do is firstly work out, 160 to 200 represents 50. Therefore, 188 is 7/10 or 70% of the way up, leaving 30% of 50 to be categorised as medium. So what do we write down? Well, I would do 30% of 50, because remember that's how many are represented by this column here, plus what we said earlier, 34 represented by this column, plus the 32 represented by this column, which goes up to the 260, and altogether 15, which is 30% of 50, plus 34 plus 32 will give us a total of 81. 81 potatoes are classed as medium. Make sure you follow along to the channel to be notified of future related videos.